Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 7 based on novel. So let's start. Do you wish to obtain the inheritance of the Devouring Master? When the nine-tailed spirit fox uttered these words, Lin Dong could clearly feel his breathing pause for a split second. His pupils expanded slightly before returning to normal a moment later. Elder, what do you mean? The ripples in his heart gradually subsided as Lin Dong could not help but ask. The inheritance of the Devouring Master possessed a great allure to anyone. This naturally included himself. Could it be that the Devouring Master did not enter into reincarnation? Lin Dong recalled Ying Huan Huan. She was the reincarnation of the Ice Master. Clearly, the power of the Ice Master would gradually re-emerge within her body in another form. Such an inheritance was something that no one else could obtain. Upon stepping into reincarnation stage, one would have a glimpse into reincarnation. In that state, even if one's body was destroyed and one's soul had vanished, one would never be completely dead. The peak-level experts who have reached that stage would be able to utilize an even more profound and mysterious method to once again reappear in this world. In other words, as long as the Devouring Master had reincarnated, it was impossible for others to obtain his inheritance. The nine-tailed spirit fox slowly nodded. Her eyes were dim and mournful. Lin Dong, was slightly taken aback. Even the Ice Master had reincarnated. Why didn't the Devouring Master do so? During the Great World War, Lord Symbol Ancestor ultimately ignited his reincarnation to seal the crack between the planes, banishing the Yimo tribe. However, we similarly had to pay an extremely terrifying price. Lord Symbol Ancestor died and the 8 ancient masters were seriously injured and on the verge of death. Before Lord Symbol Ancestor died, he used his last bit of power to deliver the Ice Master into reincarnation. However, his remaining strength was no longer sufficient to support the others into reincarnation. In fact, Lord Symbol Ancestor's last bit of power should have been barely sufficient to send the 7 other masters into reincarnation. However, if he did so, there would not be sufficient power to protect the Ice Master's reincarnation from any unexpected changes. The Ice Master is not only the head disciple of Lord Symbol Ancestor, but also the most outstanding one. Even someone as proud and untamed as the Devouring Master did not disagree. Moreover, Lord Symbol Ancestor said before that amongst the 8 masters, only the Ice Master has a chance to reach his level. You should be aware that although we ended up victorious in the Great World War, it is not over. The Yimo tribe has been constantly eyeing this world of ours. We must have a second Symbol Ancestor when the next World War begins. Lin Dong clenched his hand slightly and asked, that second Symbol Ancestor is very likely the Ice Master. The slender figure of a pretty young lady with long hair as black as ink and a lovely smile appeared in his head when he thought of this. Complicated feelings could not help but rise in his heart. He did not know whether she would still be the same young lady he had once known. Would she still be the one who had quietly played the zither at his side when that day arrived? Would that green mountain, that rock, that young lady, that old zither, from back then ultimately disappear? Of course, it was the common intention of the other 7 masters to protect the Ice Master. Hence, they did not oppose Lord Symbol Ancestor's decision. Hence, this was not because of Lord Symbol Ancestor's favoritism. The nine-tailed spirit fox smilingly elaborated when she saw that Lin Dong had suddenly become a little lost in his thoughts. She was under the impression that this was what Lin Dong was concerned about. In that case, what happened to the remaining 7 masters? Lin Dong asked. He had intruded into the mysterious magma realm in the chaotic demon sea, which ought to be the place where the Flame Master lay in slumber. Lin Dong had detected a faint ripple from the body within the floating coffin above the magma. Evidently, the Flame Master was still alive. The chaotic tower also hid the Chaos Master. Although Lin Dong was unaware of the latter's condition, it did not appear that the latter was in a life-threatening situation. The nine-tailed spirit fox slowly clenched her hand tightly as a trace of pain and bitterness seeped out from the corner of her mouth. The Devouring Master is ranked second amongst the 8 great masters. His strength is second only to that of the Ice Master. At the end of the World War, his injuries were not any better than the Ice Master, and he was only a single step away from having his Yuan spirit scattered. If he entered the reincarnation at that point, he might have been able to gain a chance to survive. However, he ultimately chose to give up this chance. Instead, he made his decision to ignite his Yuan spirit in order to obtain the final energy needed to protect the remaining 6 seriously injured masters. Lin Dong was silent while respect rose within his heart. The nine-tailed spirit fox looked at Lin Dong as she softly said, "Hence, the devouring master who did not enter reincarnation has since completely disappeared from this world. He is truly gone." Lin Dong gazed upon the nine-tailed spirit fox whose eyes were filled with sorrow. For a time, he did not know what to say. That fellow likes to do things like that, and I am already used to it. It can be said that my current self has also faded from this world together with him. Hence, there is nothing to be sad about. The nine-tailed spirit fox smiled. Her smile was rather tiny as she looked at Lin Dong. "You are the current devouring ancestral controller. If you are able to obtain his inheritance, in a way, you would have succeeded him." Lin Dong scratched his head and said, "The inheritance of the devouring master is not here, is it? Of course, do you think that there are such easy things in this world?" The nine-tailed spirit fox unhappily rolled her eyes at Lin Dong before she quickly continued, "I am only able to provide you with some clues. Whether you are able to obtain his inheritance will depend on your ability." Lin Dong smiled in embarrassment. It was just a casual question. Naturally, he was not very hopeful. In the end, he died sitting in his devouring divine palace. Thus, you will need to find the devouring divine palace if you wish to obtain his inheritance. The devouring divine palace is located within the demon region. The nine-tailed spirit fox said. "Where in the demon region?" The demon region was so vast. It was not an easy task to find the devouring divine palace within it. The devouring divine palace is hidden within space itself. Moreover, this space is constantly drifting. Hence, its position is very uncertain. It is impossible for me to tell you its exact location. The nine-tailed spirit fox smilingly said. However, it reveals itself every once in a while. You possess the devouring ancestral symbol, and it is likely that you will be the first in this world to detect it when the time comes. However, I will say this again. That fellow was extremely haughty and untamable when he was alive, and his expectations are unreasonably high. It will not be easy for you to obtain his inheritance even if you possess the devouring ancestral symbol." Lin Dong grinned and replied, "I have the utmost confidence in myself." The nine-tailed spirit fox was stunned. Soon after, she looked at Lin Dong and smiled brightly. "Your arrogance is very similar to that fellow." He had always been unhappy with the fact that the Ice Master was better than him back then and had challenged her for an entire 100 years. However, he was not able to beat her even once. Only then did he dejectedly give up. Lin Dong involuntarily smacked his lips. It seemed that this Ice Master was really extremely powerful. The moment he thought that such a powerful person had actually ended up inside Ying Huan, he began to feel an overwhelming pressure. This is basically all there is regarding the devouring master. All I can do to aid you is to provide this information to you. The nine-tailed spirit fox suddenly paused after she said this. Her eyes swept over Lin Dong and asked, "Other than the devouring ancestral symbol, is there something else related to the devouring master on you?" Lin Dong was taken aback due to this sudden question. He thought for a moment before waving his sleeve. A damaged black dried corpse appeared. Is this what Elder is referring to? The sky-devouring corpse. The nine-tailed spirit fox was a little absent-minded as she looked at the black corpse. Her eyes dimmed again as she spoke. "I never imagined that it would become so damaged." Lin Dong nodded. This sky-devouring corpse was indeed far too seriously damaged. It was still of some help when he just obtained it. Now, however, it had gradually lost its use. He had attempted to repair it, but the markings on the sky-devouring corpse were far too complicated. Even with his current control over the devouring ancestral symbol, he was still unable to do it. Back then, a sky-devouring corpse had always followed beside me. The corners of Lin Dong's mouth twitched. It seemed that this nine-tailed spirit fox did possess some untold secrets between herself and the devouring master. This sky-devouring corpse was considered the strongest guards of the devouring master. Yet, he had used one of them to protect the nine-tailed spirit fox at all times. This did not appear to be an ordinary relationship. I have only told you some clues related to the devouring divine palace earlier. Now, I shall offer you some practical help. The nine-tailed spirit fox touched the sky-devouring corpse and sighed in a distant manner. Is Elder able to restore this sky-devouring corpse? Lin Dong quickly rejoiced upon hearing this. At its peak level, this sky-devouring corpse was able to receive the attacks of even reincarnation stage experts. It would become Lin Dong's strongest helper if it could be repaired. I am not the devouring master. How can I completely restore it? The nine-tailed spirit fox rolled her eyes at Lin Dong's whimsical thoughts. After which, she said, I was also present when the devouring master created this sky-devouring corpse back then. Hence, if I borrow the power of the devouring ancestral symbol, it is possible to repair it to a certain extent. However, it will not be able to reach its peak. Only you can complete that step. Although it is unable to reach its peak, it will likely be enough to hold its own against a samsara stage expert. In that case, I will have to trouble Elder. There was still joy on Lin Dong's face. To repair the sky-devouring corpse to the point where it could fight with a samsara stage expert was enough. Lend me your devouring ancestral symbol. The nine-tailed spirit fox beckoned with her hand, and the rotating black hole in the sky whistled downwards. Meanwhile, she glanced at the thunderbolt ancestral symbol lingering over Lin Dong's head and spoke with a deeper meaning. Little fellow, you have even been able to obtain the thunderbolt ancestral symbol. However, such a divine object of the world is also a form of responsibility. The more you obtain, the greater your responsibilities will be. She did not say anything else as her finger thrust forward. The black hole began to rotate as many black light arcs shot out from it and finally adhered onto the sky-devouring corpse. Some faint damaged mysterious markings appeared to be quietly repaired and replaced. Lin Dong quietly watched from the side. He could sense a powerful ripple start to surge from the sky-devouring corpse as the black light markings on it seemed to dance. A black vortex was suspended in the air. It was possible to make out the outline of a figure present at the center of the vortex. Threads of black light continuously shuttled within its body as though they were mending something. Amidst this restoration process, an increasingly powerful ripple spread. Lin Dong was quietly seated a short distance from the vortex. His slightly lowered eyes would occasionally sweep towards the vortex with some eagerness. The sky-devouring corpse had been inside for 8 days. During these 8 days, the nine-tailed spirit fox had borrowed the ancestral symbol's power to gradually allow the sky-devouring corpse to leave its previously damaged state. Although it could not recover all the way, it was clearly much stronger than before. Elder, are you all right? Lin Dong's eyes shifted away from the vortex and looked at the light figure in front of him. The originally somewhat illusory nine-tailed spirit fox body had now become increasingly faint. The nine-tailed spirit fox merely smiled upon hearing this. However, her eyes remained fixed onto the vortex as she said, I am only a spiritual body to begin with and will ultimately disappear. Helping you a little before I disappear is a form of repayment for your kindness towards my nine-tailed tribe. At this point, her eyes suddenly focused as she softly remarked, it should almost be done. As her words faded, Lin Dong could sense an extremely powerful ripple suddenly erupt from the black hole as black light overflowed. Finally, it turned into an ancient black hole symbol. A figure that was entirely pitch black like ink was motionless under the symbol. The body of the current sky-devouring corpse was covered by carvings of various obscure ancient symbols. Although it still appeared as frail as before, Lin Dong could clearly feel the shocking power contained within the body. This current sky-devouring corpse should be able to match a perfect profound death stage expert. With its unique devouring properties, it should even be able to receive the attacks of a samsara stage expert. Of course, using it to defeat a samsara stage expert will be rather difficult. The nine-tailed spirit fox looked at the sky-devouring corpse. She was a little displeased with regards to this level of restoration. However, there was nothing she could do about it. If she was at her peak, it might be possible to repair it to the point where its defensive and offensive strength was comparable with a reincarnation stage expert. Unfortunately, it's enough. Lindong smiled. The strength of the sky-devouring corpse was in its defense. With this thing guarding him, he would be a lot safer when roaming the demon region. Lindong stood up. With a wave of his sleeve, he kept the sky-devouring corpse. The devouring ancestral symbol also turned into a ray of black light that entered his head. Soon after, he lifted his head to look at the huge bone pool in the air filled with viscous red energy. Lindong had not been able to sense Xinqing's presence ever since she entered. If it was not because he could sense that there was indeed something brewing inside, he would worry about whether something had happened to this little lass. Elder, how long will Xinqing need to receive this inheritance? A couple of years. Lindong could only helplessly shake his head in response to this somewhat uncertain number. Looks like there was no way to know when he will be able to meet Xinqing again. At that time, it was likely that many things would have changed. Elder, since everything has been settled, there is no need for me to remain here. After I leave, I will inform the Nine-Tailed tribe to do as you have instructed. In that case, thank you very much. The Nine-Tailed Spirit Fox gently smiled and said. Lindong smiled. He once again glanced at the huge bone pool in the sky before he cupped his hands and bowed respectfully towards the Nine-Tailed Spirit Fox. Without any hesitation, he turned around and left the plaza. In a couple flashes, he had already entered the spatial vortex and disappeared. The Nine-Tailed Spirit Fox watched Lindong vanish. Soon after, she let out a distant sigh. Her mumbling voice slowly reverberated across the realm. I hope that you will be able to obtain his inheritance. Though it will not be an easy task. Deep within the Nine-Tailed village, the area around the altar within the ruins was already occupied by the tribe members of the Nine-Tailed tribe. They sat on the ground. However, this vast space was void of any noise. Everyone's eyes were tightly glued to the blood-red door above the altar. None of them had rested during the 8 days since Lindong and Xinqing had entered. They wished to wait here for the final news. It was the news that would determine the fate of their Nine-Tailed tribe. With the passing of each day, a faint aura of despair quietly spread within the area. The liveliness within the eyes many Nine-Tailed tribe members also gradually disappeared. Anshin sat nearest to the altar with both hands placed together. Tiredness was faintly discernible in her eyes. However, she did not show any signs of wishing to rest. She had also detected the atmosphere of despair that had gradually spread. However, she was powerless to stop it. This was because she clearly understood that if Lindong and Xinqing were unable to return, the Nine-Tailed tribe would perhaps have no need to continue existing. Allow them to bring the past glory of the Nine-Tailed tribe and disappear from this world. Sorrow was revealed in Anshin's eyes when she thought of this. However, before this sliver of sorrow could spread, her expression suddenly changed. She violently lifted her head, only to see ripples appear on the blood-red door which had been completely calm for the past 8 days. A commotion emerged within the ruins. Everyone lifted their heads with extremely anxiousness as they looked at the rippling door. Bloodlight flashed and a young figure finally slowly walked out before appearing within their sights. It is Sir Lindong. Lindong stood on the altar and observed the numerous Nine-Tailed tribe members around him. Their eyes were filled with anticipation and hope. Anshin. Lindong looked at the pretty woman in front of the altar. He gently smiled under her incomparably anxious eyes as his voice resounded across the ruins. Congratulations, there is hope for the Nine-Tailed tribe to rise again. Lindong's voice was just like a sky-supporting pillar that churned the sea. It instantly shattered the tense atmosphere in this place. However, there was unexpectedly no cheering. The Nine-Tailed tribe members merely tightly covered their mouths while emotional tears rolled down their faces. Some of the long-suppressed sobbing finally emerged. Lindong watched this scene and sighed quietly. It was likely that the Nine-Tailed tribe had a rather difficult time over the years. When a once glorious tribe declined, its previous glory would instead end up slowly suffocating them. Lindong did not say anything else. He merely sat down in front of the altar and gazed at the distant horizon. It was a long time later before Anshin walked towards him with red eyes. He smiled at her before explaining to in detail what had happened in the ancestral Soul Hall. Sir Lindong, you are the benefactor of the Nine-Tailed tribe. If our Nine-Tailed tribe is able to rise again in the future, we will follow behind Sir to repay this great kindness. Anshin had already knelt down when Lindong's final words were spoken. The large black mass of Nine-Tailed tribe members behind her also knelt. There was heartfelt gratitude in their eyes. They were clearly aware that if it was not for Lindong, their Nine-Tailed tribe would lose even their last remaining opportunity. After which, they could only fall to the bottom of the demonic beast world and be bullied and humiliated by the others. Lindong could only laugh bitterly upon seeing this. Anshin, you should activate the formation that Elder has mentioned as soon as possible. It is time for the Nine-Tailed tribe to change. Anshin stood up and wiped the emotional tears on her face. Soon after, she heavily nodded. All members of the tribe. We will quickly shut the village and prepare the formation. Understood. All the members of the Nine-Tailed tribe loudly answered. Liveliness and confidence had once again gradually returned to their voices. Lindong stood on the altar. He looked at the now bustling village and smiled. The Nine-Tailed tribe should have regained a significant amount of its ancient glory when they meet again. It might be difficult for them to catch up to the four overlord clans. However, they would clearly possess an endless potential after being freed. It took an entire week to prepare the formation of the Nine-Tailed tribe. During this period of time, Lindong remained in the village to deal with any sudden or unexpected situations. However, he was relieved that no problems occurred at all. The preparations for the formation were completed according to schedule. Lindong's hands were behind his back as he stood on a huge tree at the center of the village. He lifted his head and gazed upon the enormous light formation which covered the entire mountain. He could detect an ancient ripple within the light formation. Sir Lindong, the Nine-Tailed Sky Concealing Formation has already been successfully prepared. This mountain will be hidden from the world once it is activated. Those outside cannot enter and we will be unable to leave. Anshin watched all of this from under the huge tree in a pleased manner as she lifted her head and said. Ever since the matter of the ancestral Soul Hall, even she had begun to address Lindong in such a manner. The latter was unused to this, but there was nothing he could do about it. Many young ladies from the Nine-Tailed tribe clustered around Anshin. They stared at Lindong with eyes that contained unconcealable respect. Even those members of the Nine-Tailed tribe further away, who were busy stabilizing the formation, would occasionally look over. Their eyes were filled with gratitude and respect. In that case, I should also be leaving. Lindong lowered his head and smiled at everyone. After which, he pointed towards a land a great distance away. Yellow dust rose to the sky as a black torrent surged over. It was Little Flame's tiger-devouring army. Anshin and the others revealed some reluctance in their eyes upon hearing this. Everyone, the entire demon region will be shaken the next time you appear in this world. At that time, all of you will no longer be weak. The glory during the ancient times will once again be created by all of you. I really look forward to our reunion. Lindong stood at the top of a tree and cupped his hands together towards the entire Nine-Tailed tribe. After which, he let loose a clear and hearty laughter. His body moved and turned into a light figure that shot out of the Nine-Tailed village. Goodbye, sir. Large groups of Nine-Tailed tribe members were led by Anshin as they bowed towards him from behind. Their respectful voices continuously reverberated across the mountain as Lindong's disappeared into the distance. The next time this mountain stockade appeared, it would likely shake the entire demon region like Lindong had said. Lindong stood outside the Nine-Tailed village and peered into the distance. The land shook as a black torrent surged over while accompanied by an overflowing aura of dreadfulness. It was like a ferocious ancient beast that was displaying its extraordinary might. The black torrent quickly arrived in front of Lindong before it came to a halt and a metal tower-like figure shot out. The figure heavily landed before Lindong like a mountain. In that instant, the entire loud land violently shook for a moment. Big brother. Little Flame looked Lindong as a grin was revealed on his rough face. Lindong smiled but did not say anything unnecessary. Let's go. Little Flame nodded. He glanced at the nine-tail village behind Lindong, only to discover that the space there had begun to distort a little. After which, the entire mountain and the village slowly vanished in an extremely strange fashion. This scene stunned Little Flame. His senses swept past and surprise immediately flashed across his tiger eyes. This was because he discovered it had really become empty. Even the slightest energy fluctuation could not be felt. Let's go. The nine-tail village will disappear for a period of time. However, Lindong stepped forward. He raised his head to look at the sky above and laughed. When they reappear, it is likely that the entire demon region will be shaken. Little Flame fell into thought as he took a big step forward and followed Lindong. They stopped in front of the tiger-devouring army. As a pair of tiger eyes looked at the army before them, a stern expression flitted across them and a low shout sounded, "This is my big brother Lindong. Your lives are mine and my life belongs to Big Brother. Hence, from now onwards, all your lives also belong to him." His words were long-winded but blunt. It seemed that the demonic beast world had done away with the many fancy mannerisms of the humans. From a certain point of view, the demonic beasts did not easily give their loyalty when compared to humans. However, once they did so, it would be equivalent to completely owning them. In the past, every person in this tiger-devouring army was at the lowest level of this world. They were ordered around and enslaved by others. All their pride was lost and they were akin to walking zombies. In the end, it was Little Flame who had pulled them from that state and used his inherited essence blood to change them. He also allowed them to become the tiger-devouring army whose name made countless people shake in fear. He gave them a second life. In their eyes, Little Flame was the king who ruled them. Understood? Hence, there was not a single protest from the entire tiger-devouring army after they heard Little Flame's shout. All they did was deeply acknowledge in unison. "You must be really bored." Lindong was somewhat helpless in the face of this as he frowned and chided Little Flame. After which, he leaped onto a huge black beast while Little Flame grinned and followed. Let's go. This tiger-devouring army, which was filled with ferocity, once again turned into a torrent after Little Flame cried out. It let out a rumbling sound as it traveled into the distance. Following their departure, this entire region had become completely empty and quiet. "Big Brother, the mountain gathering of Deep Lightning Mountain will begin tomorrow. I have already ensured that preparations are mostly done. Those 5 warriors are willing to attack with us." Little Flame sat beside Lindong as the army swept forth. Soon after, he grabbed at the empty space in front of him with a large hand while his expression turned ferocious. "The time has finally come for me to act against that person. I have endured a year for this day. Knowing how to endure is not a bad thing." Lindong smiled and said, "I certainly have not reached Big Brother's level. In order to deal with Lin Liangqian back then, you endured for many years. However, that fellow's final expression was really exhilarating to see." Little Flame smilingly said. He had followed Lindong as they walked out from the tiny Qingyang town and had gone through fire and water with Lindong. Little Flame had also bore witness to how that once weak young man had rose a step at a time. Lindong smiled faintly. He felt a little emotional about how they, a human, a tiger and a marten, had roamed the land. It was likely that none of them back then would have imagined things would become like this a couple of years later. Back then, even little Martin was merely a little demonic spirit who was constantly worried about when he would disappear. How is the overall strength of Deep Lightning Mountain like? Lindong reminisced those memories for a moment before pulling his mind back to reality. What they were about to do now was no small matter. Xu Song was the demon commander of Deep Lightning Mountain. His power was extremely deep-rooted. Although Little Flame had secretly managed to create some flames of rebellion, both Little Flame and him would have to pay a great price if they were to underestimate the other party. This was something that the usually cautious Lindong would do his best to avoid. On the surface, the overall all-strength of Deep Lightning Mountain is the demon commander Xu Song and the 9 great generals. Little Flame's expression grew serious now that they were discussing proper matters. However, based on some secret information I received over the past year, there is also a shadow guard at Xu Song's side. Shadow guard? Lin Dong slightly lifted his brow. This shadow guard is the subordinate that Xu Shong truly trusts. However, he does not oversee Deep Lightning Mountain. Even the 9 great generals seldom have a chance to see him. However, one must not underestimate this person's strength. Little Flame explained in a deep voice. When I arrived at Deep Lightning Mountain 1 year ago, I saw this shadow guard defeat an advanced profound death stage expert in a single strike. Based on my speculation, even if that shadow guard cannot compare to Xu Shong, it is likely that he has also stepped into the perfect profound death stage. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed a little. Looks like this Deep Lightning Mountain was indeed quite strong. It was likely that if he had not found Little Flame this time around, the latter's plan would only have a 50% chance of succeeding. However, this did match Little Flame's character of seeking great gains from dangerous situations. I was originally also quite worried about this. However, with Big Brother joining us, there is no longer a need to be worried about that shadow guard. As for the others, we should have a good chance at victory as long as those 5 warriors do not turn their backs on us. Little Flame paused before he continued. Of course, the key person is still Xu Shong. That fellow is only 1 step away from stepping into the samsara stage. Lin Dong nodded. If Xu Shong had really advanced into the samsara stage, the difficulty of their plan would be raised by several levels. At that time, it was likely that those 5 warriors would not have the courage to rebel. We will see what happens tomorrow, Lin Dong said. He really wished to see just how many tricks that demon commander of Deep Lightning Mountain had up his sleeve. Yes, Big Brother, let's hurry to somewhere close to Deep Lightning Mountain. We will meet the 5 great generals there. At that time, we will see if Big Brother can remove the deep dark ghost seal on their bodies. They will not dare to fight against Xu Shong with us with this thing on them, Little Flame said. Lin Dong nodded. He lifted his head and peered into the distance. It was his desire to see just how powerful this so-called demon commander in comparison to the Yimo. Half a day later, the army that was galloping like a torrent suddenly reduced its speed. A continuous stretch of tents lay before them while all kinds of noises soared towards the sky. Lin Dong could faintly see the outline of a mountain that seemed to stretch on endlessly while a ferocious aura blew over from far away. This should be Deep Lightning Mountain. There were evidently many units gathered in this campgrounds. Hence, a commotion broke out in the campsite when the tiger-devouring army appeared while accompanied by a monstrous ferocious aura. Many somewhat terrified eyes looked over. In an instant, the entire campsite became much quieter. It seemed that the tiger-devouring army not only frightened the other factions but even those from the same faction did not dare provoke them. The tiger-devouring army completely ignored those terrified gazes and barbarically charged in. After which, they occupied the best spot in the campgrounds while causing a complete mess. Little Flame instructed the tiger-devouring army to set up camp. Only after night approached did he secretly lead Lin Dong out of the camp and rushed into the dense forest behind. The 2 of them traveled through the forest. A couple of minutes later, their bodies gradually slowed. There was a bonfire rising beside a cliff to their front and it was possible to vaguely see a couple of sturdy and well-built figures. Ha ha, General Yang, you are once again the last to arrive. The Lin Dong duo rushed out of the forest and landed beside the cliff. After which, a somewhat rough and arrogant laughter was heard. Lin Dong lifted his gaze and looked over, only to see 5 people standing beside the bonfire. Their bodies were tall and well-built. Crisscrossing scars covered their naked arms while their eyes flickered with an ominous light. All of their auras were extremely ferocious and it was obvious that they were not ordinary people. Little Flame glanced at the 5 of them. After which, he turned his body and pointed at Lin Dong. This is my big brother Lin Dong. Lin Dong could feel that the 5 great generals were stunned when Little Flame's voice sounded. Soon after, they looked at him in an absurd fashion. One of them involuntarily grinned and laughed. General Yang, don't tell me that this initial profound death stage human is the big brother whom you said could match a perfect profound death stage expert. General Yang, you should know how risky it will be tomorrow. Hence, this matter is not a joke. Another man, who had a metal-like long black tail entwined around his waist, also frowned and spoke in a deep voice. He can undo the deep dark ghost seals on our bodies. This general is not very convinced. A man whose body was covered in deep yellow scales glanced at Lindorm. He was rather hot-tempered. Immediately, he stood up and spoke in an angry voice. "You are asking us to risk our lives for you like this? I will not do it. It seems that the plan tomorrow can be cancelled." He swung his hand after speaking and was about to turn around and leave when he saw that a skinny figure had already appeared in front of him. After which, he saw the young human before his eyes smile at him. Resplendent green light accompanied by a dragon roar abruptly reverberated across the mountain. "You?" Green light exploded in the man's eyes as an ominous look suddenly flickered on his face. His feet heavily stomped onto the ground and the land crumbled. Deep yellow yuan power turned into layers of deep yellow turtle armor in front of him at a shocking speed. Strange markings flickered on the turtle armor, filling it with a kind of toughness that could not be destroyed. When the turtle armor was formed, green light wrapped around a fist as it flew forward. Bang! A muffled sound spread. After which, the pupils of the other four shrunk when they saw the turtle armor shield, which could block a half-step to perfect profound death stage expert, directly collapse at this moment. The frail fist had already penetrated through when the turtle armor was shattered and heavily landed on the man's chest. An energy ripple that was visible to the naked eye spread outwards while that figure flew backwards like a cannonball. It smeared across the ground, creating a 300 feet long mark before ruthlessly shooting into a mountain wall. Shattered rocks flew and the entire place was a complete mess. At this moment, the young man beside the bonfire finally smiled slightly and lifted his head. He looked at the four stunned and speechless generals. "Now, do you still have any doubts? This video will end here.